Hello, everyone. Everyone hear me? Good. My name's Emma Riley. I'm a production executive at the Tinopolis Group. And today I'm going to be outlining some of the digital media initiatives that the Tinopolis Group have pushed forward in the last few years, and why we believe new technology is allowing us to create new revenue streams within our business. Just to give you a little bit of background about the Tinopolis Group, for those who don't know, we started in Llanelli in Wales in the early 80s and have since grown internally and through a number of acquisitions to be one of the largest independent production companies in the UK. We have offices in Llanelli, Cardiff, London, Glasgow, Oxford, New York and Los Angeles. And across the group, we produce around just over 3,500 hours of programming a year, and we deliver to nearly 500 broadcasters around the globe. Some of our highlights include being the producer of Question Time for the BBC for the last decade. We also produced the groundbreaking series Animals in the Womb for Channel 4. We're working with one of our partners. We were the producer of the Paralympics for Channel 4, and we're also the host broadcaster for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow 2014. I started at Tinopolis actually at Mentor in 2007 as a production manager, and I production managed our first fully file-based HD series for Sky. And since then, I've kind of dotted around the group. I've worked for Mentor and Sunset and Vine, managing in-house facilities. But now specifically, I work for the group to better integrate our systems across the group, utilize the knowledge that we gain from one production onto another production, but specifically in these changing times and decreasing budgets to save us time, save us money, and make us money through new technology. So before we get started about digital media initiatives, I think it's worth getting rid of the elephant in the room, which is the thing that everybody finds incredibly boring, library. If your group's anything like ours, we've been making programs for about 35 years. So if you think your average observational documentary that Mentor make probably produces around 100 hours of footage for every 1 hour of programming, we've got thousands and thousands of hours of footage, rushes and finished program. This is what our library looks a little bit like. Actually, it's on a lot bigger scale. We've got 2 Tesco warehouses in Wales full of tapes, U-matics, D7s, every format going back from the 1970s. We realized very quickly in the last few years that unless we wanted to take over every Tesco building that Wales had to offer, we needed to do something about it. So with the advent of file-based working, we decided we'd start from now and draw a line in the sand, and we devised a new library policy. This involved all our file-based rushes, as virtually most of the group, at least about 85% of the group, have been file-based for the last 2 or 3 years. All our file-based rushes being logged and having that metadata stay with the media, taking a bit more of a brutal approach about what we kept in our library and what we didn't, whereas previously I think our policy was that we kept everything. But also, this thing is actually costing us money. We're paying tens of thousands of pounds a year to keep these rushes and these finished programs on our shelf. And actually look at how we might be able to use this archive to actually either make us money or use it in our current programs. On further inspection, we realized that we actually had a system that was capable of helping us do this. In 2007, we bought a tape library system that allowed us to keep a track physically of a tape. We stuck a barcode on it, we scanned it, and we logged it into that particular shelf in that particular Tesco building. Because of this, this asset management system, we actually realized could ingest SD and HD media. It would capture a proxy version that could be logged. It would host that proxy version locally, and all our license agreement allowed it to be accessible from every desktop within our group. We thought, rather than spend on a very expensive asset management systems that are already out there now, it would be better at least to try and work with CatDV, with Squarebox, who make CatDV, and see whether actually we could make this system work for us and all the new initiatives that we wanted to do. So in 2009, we worked with them to support the file-based proxies that the cameras that we were shooting on were creating. So XD-cam proxies from, say, a Sony 700. These then were able to be rewrapped into .mobs and go straight into our system, so the master disk or master media never really had to come anywhere near our asset management system. What it meant for my production at the time, in 2009, I was production managing an idiot abroad. We sent proxies back from all the 7 wonders of the world on memory sticks. If they didn't arrive, it didn't matter. We had the masters on location anyway. Those proxies came back, we rewrapped them, and our loggers, our army of loggers that we had, were able to log all that media. So as soon as the director touched it down at Heathrow, he was given a stack of all his transcriptions of the last 2 weeks of his shoot. He wasn't fantastically happy about that, because he had to work his weekend to catch up with them. But everything was finished. There wasn't a typical shoot, logging, edit process. We then rushed out and upgraded to a web client, so it meant that not only in our main building in London could we see all these proxies, our directors could log from home. We could also use it on a number of other companies that we have around the UK. So for all our productions now, we ingest our file-based proxies into CatDV. All our tape-based rushes can also be digitized in. It's captured at proxy resolution. All logging, transcribing, metadata tagging is completed from any terminal within our building or outside. Producers can use it to view their rushes at any time, either whilst the production's going on or even after the event. And you can even do sync pulls and rough cuts to keep those edit costs down. But at the back of it, we still actually have a library system. This system will still actually tell us where the tape is. So if we did shoot it on a digi, then it will still tell us exactly where that digi is. It's barcode scanned, so if it goes from Pioneer Productions to Mentorn Productions, we can scan it in at either end and make sure we keep a track of it. Even moving into a file-based world, you can do exactly the same. It doesn't have to be a tape. It can be a drive. It can be an S/S card. It can be anything that houses media. We're able to track our assets around the group and make sure we always know where they are. We now have a digital library system accessible from any terminal within our group, local storage for all our proxy versions that's managed internally and keeps our costs incredibly low to run a system that actually allows us to see all of our media. So a library has gone from the dusty shelves to something a little bit like this and a little bit like that. On to our next kind of digital media initiatives. What we really wanted to look at was what it was that we produced when we made a program. We didn't just make the program. There were all sorts of other products and byproducts that were either coming into our building to make that program or that we produced at the end of it. So just looking through acquisition, obviously you're creating your rushes. Any logging or viewing, we're adding descriptions. Sometimes we're adding full transcriptions and shot logs to certain rushes. In post-production, we might be getting music either from people like Audio Networks or even getting specially composed music. And once we finish the program, we end up with the finished program, possible reversions of the finished program, the format that we could sell, and also all the library and archive footage. So just taking two of those, looking at our rushes and our metadata, we tried to see how we could use this a little bit better, rather than just sticking it on a shelf. Now, as many of you may know, copyright issues have halted most production companies from using their rushes and finished programs for anything else than just delivering to the broadcaster over the past few years. The broadcaster would always retain copyright of every shot on that production to the point of retaining, essentially they actually retain everything to do with that production, including any props you buy for it or anything like that. They take everything. So as a production company, that's where our responsibility ended. All we had to do was stick it on a shelf and keep it for the length of the production contract. We couldn't actually use it in any other way. Then in 2005, the new terms of trade, I don't know why I still call them new, they're 8 years old. The new terms of trade really changed that. So for the majority of, certainly the UK terrestrial broadcasters, the copyright suddenly came back to us. The majority of, as I said, the majority of terrestrial broadcasters, sports is excluded from that quite often because sporting is a little bit more complicated in terms of the sporting federations. But people like the BBC, we make traffic cops for the BBC and motorway cops and all sorts of different cop shows for the BBC, as well as any documentaries that we make for ITV. We suddenly found ourselves in possession of the copyright of those rushes. So what is in our dusty archives? How could we actually use some of this footage? What could we do with it? Well, first of all, the easiest one to knock off is GVs and aerials. In my time as a production manager at Mentorn, I shot 5 aerial shoots at night over London on different programs. 2 of them were SD, 3 of them were HD, and 4 of them in total were for Sky. Sky, one of the broadcasters where they retain copyright, but one of them was for the BBC. Therefore, we've got nighttime aerials over London, non-program specific, in HD, that we own the copyright to. And they're sat on an HD cam tape somewhere in our library. What we had to do was recognize them through our asset management system being able to put them online, and someone will be able to find them, and we can license them to a new program. So we don't have to spend however many thousand on reshooting them. We can shoot them. We can use the archive that we've actually got. We're looking at events and news and iconic interviews as well. Mental Media has been producing current affairs programs for a very long time. But certainly since 2005, we're making panoramas, cutting edge, dispatches, any of the GVs or interviews, actually, that we shoot for those particular programs are ours. We can reuse them. We don't even have to reuse them in terms of using them in another program. We can actually use them as part of a pitch to pitch for a new program. Say, we've got this archive footage. We've got, if we put this interview with this interview with this interview, we can make a completely new program about a particular event. So it's actually quite a wealth of knowledge for our development team as well, to be able to see what we own, and we own it. So why can't we use it? Here's one of the examples of that. So this went live today. Anyone who's a music fan, we found ourselves in possession of a music library in terms of interviews with people like David Bowie, Led Zeppelin, Amy Winehouse. We actually owned the archive of something called Vox Pop. We found it in our search for all the different productions that we had. And what we've done is we've taken all those interviews, we've chopped them down into nice little chunks. We've worked with a company called Diagonal View, and we published a YouTube channel. It's the start of our kind of consumer using of archive. Obviously, with YouTube, you stick ads around it. It's not a massive amount of money, but the idea is that we get a number of channels repurposing our archive, and we build up a subscription. Diagonal View have been very good in helping us kind of get the right sound bites for the YouTube audience and being able to focus on it. And hopefully, we can actually add a Tinopolis group number of YouTube channels to be able to get our content out there. As I said, it went live today. So if you'd like to subscribe, please go on YouTube. Going back to our production workflow then and picking something else, let's pick music. Music is, unfortunately, music has been something that's getting specially composed music for programs used to be lovely. About 10 years ago, we used to do it on a regular basis. Unfortunately, as budgets have squeezed, we get it less and less and less. It's one of the lines that gets knocked off the bottom, which is such a shame, I think. Saying that, what we did do, what I found certainly before I started at Tinopolis, is, let me just catch up, we actually realized that across all the different companies that we've got, all of them had started their own music label and asked composers to sign to their music label. So when we did actually get specially composed music, they signed to our label. So Music Box was one that one of our CEOs of Sunset and Vine used to have, and everyone used to sign to Music Box. Golden Break Music used to be Sunset and Vine and Mental Media's music label when they were together under Television Corporation. And Telesonic Music was part of Bass Productions, which is a company that we've bought in LA. We added up all the tracks that we were currently keeping, and we realized we had about 12,000 tracks of music that we owned the copyright to. Again, it's something that we wanted to do something with. So in 2008, we made all our music available in our internal edits. We basically copied loads of drives, copied all the music on there, threw it on our servers in each individual internal edit across the UK and the US. So as editors were looking for music, they could go onto the music drive and look in the music that we actually owned, rather than necessarily going to audio networks or looking somewhere else. 2011, we realized that editors weren't using quite as much as we wanted them to, because they didn't know if stamp as just picking a particular track, they didn't know what it was, what it sounded like, and when you're looking through thousands of tracks, you need something that immediately jumps out with you. You need something, some way of finding it. So we categorized all our music. We gave it all a genre, we gave it all a mood, we gave it an instrument, and then we categorized it by composer. So a particular editor for sports had been using a composer for a long time, and they knew they liked their kind of music, then they could go to that. And then last year, we took all that metadata, that categorization, and we actually embedded it into the audio track. So when you downloaded that audio track into your edit, you actually had all of that data already. You had the composer, you had very important, you had the actual label, whether it was Music Box, Golden Break, or Telesonic. You had a unique reference number that allowed us to track it through the music queue and be able to claim the royalties back. And you had a way of being able to find it again. We then decided this wasn't enough. It's fine having it internally, but as we were commissioning more music, say Daybreak pitches our drama, or I'm commissioned another track, we realized the legwork involved in making sure that every single drive and all our internal edits in the UK and the US was updated with all of that data was just taking too long. So we decided to house it in something called Audio Hub. We basically put all of our music onto the cloud and built a front-end website. The website is fully searchable under all of the metadata that we've already described, so you can search by composer, by instrument, by genre. All that metadata is embedded in all the tracks, and it's also stored in WAV, AIF, or MP3, so it gives the options of the editors to be able to download it. All our offices were given access to this site by restricted IP address. Any production could use it for free, and it also allowed you to save certain tracks into projects and spit out a music cue sheet. So it made your production coordinator or your production manager very happy because it automated their music cue sheet if you used all of our music. Audio Hub's been running for about a year now, and with great success. Actually, we've seen the use of our music literally skyrocket. So in the spring this year, we've taken the decision to actually launch it outside. It will be audiohub.tv. We're going to open it up in probably mid to late spring, and it will be free to use for any production company. It's all of our music. We claim, as well as the composer, claim a little bit of the back-end royalties, but it means that we get our music out there. The more music we get out there, the better our composers are because they get little checks in the post, the more music they put onto our label. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And also, hopefully, it allows production companies to use some of the very specific sports music that we've got for Sunset and Vine, or the specific current affairs music that we've got for more Momentum productions, or some of the things that we've actually composed for Pioneer Productions in terms of high-level CGI, National Geographic type things. So please watch out for that in the early spring. Going back to our workflow again, and just to pick out one final thing, picking out finished programs. Now, finished programs, obviously, the broadcaster has rights to broadcast it. But what we were quite interested to do with the broadcaster is look a little bit more about not just delivering them one program and being happy with that, but actually the better that program does, the better we are. In terms of the broadcaster gets a bit higher audience figure, we look better as a producer, it might even drive another commission. So I don't know if any of you are dog fans, but we're making Crufts next week. It starts on the 7th of March, and Sunset and Vine have got a long-standing partnership with Crufts through the Kennel Club and Channel 4. As a commission, we're producing 2 programs next weekend for Channel 4 and More 4, and we're live from the finale of Crufts. However, we wanted to drive interest in the program before the finale. There's a lot going on at Crufts for kind of 4 or 5 days that actually we're not commissioned to make. So we came up with an idea that would hopefully drive people towards watching the finale of Crufts on Channel 4. Again, it involves YouTube. We created the Crufts Factor, which is its own YouTube channel, having live streaming from Crufts of the entire days of Crufts and the highlights of Crufts every single day. We're going to be driving the subscription to this membership, as will the Kennel Club, as will Channel 4 and More 4, to the point where we build up to our live broadcast with Channel 4 on the Sunday night. Hopefully this will allow people to actually get a bit of loyalty towards Crufts, to watch dogs as they move through the competition, and then to tune into the main broadcast. That's about all I have to say at the moment. We've got a number of others. We're saying there's a few things I haven't mentioned of here, but it's a bit of a slow process going back through your archive when you've got so many thousands of hours. So these are where we've started, and we've kind of given ourselves a very long roadmap in looking back at all of this. So there's only a few things, but I expect by next year we'll be doing even more things, and we'll be taking over YouTube. Does anyone have any questions in particular? Silence. Oh.
Human beings go through and relog material for you so you can use it better, or using auto-analysis, content rules?
It's a really difficult one because you've got so much of it to go through, and obviously no one's going to pay you to do that. It's a cost that you have to shelve yourself in a hope that actually you'll be able to make revenue in the future. So we have done with things like, we've taken standalone things like the Vox Pop. We knew that there were some really good archive bits in there. We knew we had Amy Winehouse. We knew we had David Bowie. And the strangest thing about production companies, obviously, we have quite a high level of freelancers. So the people who worked on those programs have long since left our company. So we realized all that knowledge is leaving our company with them. And we happen to have had a couple of people that stayed who've kind of shouted up and said, actually, I remember filming something in the 80s that was incredible. So we've started off there. How far we go down that line is a little bit difficult to say. Will we start relogging Traffic Cops Series 1? Probably not. Will we get rid of it? Probably. It's in SD anyway. But there comes to a point where you just have to be a bit brutal. We're starting off ourselves quite gentle, and then hopefully we're working up to the fact that we might actually be able to get rid of one of the Tesco warehouses altogether. But the hardest thing as well is that you're always adding to this archive. So it costs us tens of thousands a year now. It's only going to cost us more in the future. It's never going to be a cost that goes down. Unless we take action now, we're always going to be spending, we're very soon going to be in six figures, sorry, in terms of how much we pay to store all our rushes. And it's madness, really. It's only going to keep gobbling up.
Keeping your digital media, I mean, how have you managed to budget for that?
For something like AudioHub, for something like CatDV, that's all local storage. But for AudioHub, we started off with music, so the cost of it is so small. There's another company within Tinopolis called Tinopolis Interactive, who are based in Wales, and they do quite a lot of e-learning and web platform things. So they happen to, with S4C, have a cloud provider at the time. So we've piggybacked that deal at the moment. But we very much see cloud as something that will allow us to use as an intranet across the group. So the revenues that we generate from AudioHub more than cover the running costs of something so small like music. If we started to get into clips, we start to get a little bit more difficult, because do we want them on there in high resolution so that people can download them? Maybe not. Maybe we just have them there as viewing copies and then we have a library. So a little bit up in the air. At the end of a production at the moment, our rushes are going onto LTO, and we're still storing those LTOs on the shelf. Part of our library policy is to put an expiry date on how long that sits on the shelf. Not to say that we'll definitely get rid of it in 5 years' time, but to have the decision reviewed. I think what happens is it goes on the shelf saying, yeah, we'll keep that. For instance, we have Robot Wars. We used to make Robot Wars. We have all of the rushes from Robot Wars. We don't own the copyright to them. They're sat on the shelf doing nothing. But all we've done is saying, OK, well, let's keep it for another year and review in another year. And it's just trying to update it so that we keep asking ourselves, these rushes are costing us money. Do we really need them? Anyone else? No? OK, thank you very much for coming.